Ethan wasn't expecting anyone that night. It was just another quiet evening in his small apartment, a place that smelled faintly of coffee, old books, and rain-soaked city air. He had just come home from work, exhausted, ready to take a shower and forget about the world for a while. The water was warm, the steam rising, fogging up the bathroom mirror. For once, life felt simple, but simplicity never lasts. He was halfway through brushing his teeth when he heard it, a faint hum coming from the bathroom. At first, he thought it was the pipes groaning again. But then came a sound that froze him completely, a voice, soft, gentle, humming a tune that didn't belong to this world. Ethan turned off the tap, listening closely. The sound grew clearer. It wasn't from outside. It was coming from inside his shower. Heart thudding, he slowly reached for the curtain. "Hello?" he whispered, half expecting a prank, half terrified he'd find someone standing there. The humming stopped. The air felt heavier. Steam curled through the dim light like ghostly fingers. He pulled the curtain open, and there she was. A girl, not more than 20, maybe younger, standing barefoot in the shower, drenched from head to toe. Her hair shimmered silver, clinging to her shoulders like strands of moonlight. Her skin was pale, almost glowing faintly in the mist, and her eyes, God, her eyes were a deep violet that shimmered with light of their own. For a long second, neither of them moved. Ethan's mind raced to find reason. Maybe she was lost. Maybe she'd broken in. Maybe he was dreaming. But something in her face said otherwise. She didn't look like a thief or a stranger from down the street. She looked. "Wrong for this world, where am I?" she whispered, voice trembling. Her accent was soft, unfamiliar. Each word felt like she was learning how to speak for the first time. Ethan blinked, stammering. You're in my bathroom." Her violet eyes darted around, taking in the tiles, the faucet, the light bulb overhead. "This world," she murmured, "it hums so loudly. It feels heavy." Ethan didn't know what to say. "You shouldn't be here," he managed. "Who are you? How did you even—" She looked at him then, her expression raw, almost childlike. "I don't know. I was walking through the corridors of light, and then everything tore apart. I fell. And now I'm here." Ethan's breath caught. He wanted to laugh, to tell her it made no sense, that she needed help. But there was no lie in her voice, no confusion in her eyes, just fear and exhaustion. She hugged her arms around herself, shivering slightly. The way she looked at the world, the way her gaze traced the simple shower tiles as if they were alien, it made him pause. Her skin shimmered softly like the glow of a dying candle. And yet she looked so human. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. She hesitated. "Lyra," she said finally. "I think that's what they used to call me." Ethan took a slow breath, trying to calm his racing heart. "Okay, Lyra, you're safe. I don't know where you came from, but you're safe here." "Safe?" She repeated the word, almost tasting it. Humans still use that word. There was something about the way she said humans that made Ethan's stomach twist. It wasn't mockery, it was awe, as if the word carried meaning deeper than he could understand. She stared at him for a moment, eyes softening, her lips curling into a faint, unsure smile. He grabbed a towel from the rack and held it out. "Here, you must be freezing." She took it gently, hands trembling. When her fingers brushed his, Ethan felt a faint pulse of warmth, like touching sunlight through water. For a second, the air shimmered around them and a faint glow rippled across her skin before fading. She looked down, almost embarrassed. "It happens when I'm afraid," she whispered. "The light escapes." Ethan swallowed hard, unsure what any of this meant. His mind told him to call someone, police, hospital, anyone. But his heart said something else. This girl wasn't dangerous. She was lost. And somehow, impossibly, she had landed in his life. He nodded toward the living room. "Come on, let's get you dry and then we'll figure things out." Lyra followed him silently, her bare feet leaving small wet prints on the floor. The apartment felt different now, warmer, brighter, almost alive. Ethan didn't know who she was or where she came from, but deep down, he felt something strange awaken inside him, a spark of curiosity, a whisper of destiny. And somewhere beyond the rain and the city lights, something unseen watched. The first ripple of a story that would change both their worlds forever. The night after Lyra appeared, Ethan barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face, those violet eyes shining softly in the dark, full of fear and wonder. He didn't understand who she was or how she came here, but one thing was clear. She needed help. And somehow, without meaning to, he had become the only person she could rely on. The next morning, he found her sitting on the couch, wrapped tightly in a blanket, staring at the window like a child seeing the world for the first time. The early sunlight painted her face in gold. She blinked at it, lifting her hand slowly as if trying to catch the light. When the warmth touched her skin, she smiled faintly. "It's warm," she whispered. "Real warmth. Not like the false suns back home." Ethan stopped halfway through making coffee. "False suns?" he repeated. Lyra nodded softly. "Our skies were built, not born. The light there is made by machines that sing. It never changes, never fades. It doesn't feel alive like this." Ethan wasn't sure how to respond, so he just nodded and handed her a mug of water. She took it carefully, sniffing it like it might bite. Then she took a sip and froze. Her eyes widened in shock. "It tastes like rivers from the old sky," she said in awe. "Clean, pure." Ethan chuckled lightly. "That's just tap water." She looked at the glass again, wonder still dancing in her eyes. "Then your world is kind. Even its water remembers beauty." Her words made something in him ache, something he didn't know was missing. He tried to act normal, asking simple questions, trying to understand her. "So, Lyra, you said you fell here. What does that mean?" She lowered her eyes. "I was traveling through the corridors between worlds. I was not supposed to fall. But something went wrong. The path collapsed and pushed me out. I thought I'd die." Ethan frowned. "And now you're stuck here?" Lyra nodded. "Until the paths open again. But I don't know when that will be. Maybe days. Maybe never." Her voice cracked on that last word, and Ethan felt the pain in it. She wasn't just lost, she was alone in a world she didn't belong to. He hesitated, then said gently, "You can stay here, at least for now, until you figure something out." She looked up at him sharply. "Stay?" "Yeah," he said, trying to sound casual. "I have an extra blanket. You can sleep on the couch. And you probably need food, right?" She tilted her head. "Food humans still eat?" Ethan laughed softly. "You don't? In my world we absorb light," she said simply. "But maybe I can try your way." That afternoon he cooked a simple meal, scrambled eggs and toast. Lyra watched him the whole time, fascinated by the frying pan, the smell, the crackle of butter. When he handed her the plate, she studied the food like it was some rare treasure. "It's warm," she murmured. "It alive." She took a bite and gasped. Her eyes went wide again, and she smiled so brightly it made Ethan laugh. "This is joy," she said softly. "You can taste joy." They ate together quietly, the small apartment filled with a strange peace. Over the next few days, Lyra tried to learn everything she could. She pressed buttons on the TV remote, stared at passing cars, and asked endless questions about things Ethan had never thought about before. Why humans wore shoes, why the air felt heavy, why they built walls instead of living under the sky. One evening, she asked him, "Why do humans smile?" Ethan thought for a moment. "Because it feels good," he said. "Because it's a way to say I'm happy without speaking." She tried it, an awkward little curve of her lips, and asked, "Like this?" He nodded. "Yeah, like that." Her smile deepened then, soft and real, and something inside him melted. But there were times when she grew quiet, staring at the window, her eyes full of longing. He once caught her whispering something under her breath, words he couldn't understand. When he asked, she just said, "A song from home. I sing it so my stars don't forget me." That night, as she fell asleep on the couch, Ethan stood by the door and watched her. The faint silver glow around her had dimmed to a soft shimmer, like moonlight trapped in human form. She looked peaceful for the first time. He realized something then. He didn't just want to help her because she was lost. He wanted her to stay, and somewhere deep inside he feared that when her stars remembered her, they'd come to take her away. Days turned into weeks, and Ethan slowly got used to having Lyra around. What once felt strange and impossible now felt normal. She moved through his apartment like quiet sunlight, soft, curious, and always bringing warmth with her. Every morning, she watched the sky as if it held secrets only she could hear. Every night she asked Ethan questions about things he never thought much about. "Why do humans close their eyes when they feel sad?" she asked one evening. He looked at her, a little surprised. Maybe to stop the tears from falling. Lyra nodded softly, as if the answer held more meaning than the words themselves. She was learning fast. She learned how to use the TV remote, though she called it the talking box controller, how to open and close the fridge, and even how to make toast, though she once burned 5 slices before getting it right. Ethan would laugh and she would smile shyly, embarrassed but glowing. "It's harder than it looks," she'd say, and he would tease her about being an interdimensional being who couldn't handle bread. They spent evenings talking on the couch, surrounded by the warm hum of the city outside. Lyra loved asking about Earth. "Why are your skies heavy?" she'd ask. "In my world, the air dances. Here, it feels like it carries pain." Ethan didn't know how to explain pollution or exhaustion or broken dreams, so he just said quietly, "Because humans forget how to breathe sometimes." Lyra looked at him for a long moment. "Then I'll remind you," she whispered, and she did. She started planting tiny seeds in broken mugs by the window. She played with light, humming songs that made dust particles shimmer in strange patterns. When Ethan came home tired from work, she would smile and say, "You're leaking sadness again. Sit down, I'll fix it." Then she'd hum a soft tune that made his chest feel lighter. One night, as rain poured outside, Ethan found Lyra standing at the balcony door staring at the falling drops. Her silver hair glowed faintly under the dim light. "Is something wrong?" he asked. She turned toward him, her eyes shining. "It's beautiful," she said simply. "Your world cries, but even its tears are lovely." Ethan smiled, stepping closer. "Rain isn't sadness," he said. "It's just part of the cycle." She tilted her head. "Then maybe sadness is too." Her words struck him harder than he expected. He looked at her, really looked at her, the way her light reflected against the glass, the way she seemed both fragile and endless at once, and he felt something shift inside him. He was falling for her, slowly, quietly, hopelessly. But Lyra didn't understand emotions the way humans did. One evening, she saw a couple holding hands in a movie and asked, "Why do humans touch like that? Does it share energy?" Ethan smiled. "Something like that. It's how people show care." She thought for a moment, then gently took his hand. Her fingers were warm, soft, glowing faintly. "Like this?" she asked innocently. Ethan's heart nearly stopped. "Yeah," he whispered, voice shaking. "Exactly like that." Lyra's face lit up with curiosity. "Then I care for you, Ethan." He laughed softly, but it hurt a little. She didn't understand what those words meant to humans, how deep they could cut, how much they could heal. But in that moment, he didn't care. Her innocence was beautiful, pure, untouched by the world's weight. Later that night, while she slept on the couch, Ethan sat nearby, staring at her peaceful face. The faint silver glow around her skin flickered gently, like moonlight breathing. She looked both angelic and alien, too perfect for this small, ordinary world. He whispered softly, "I wish you could stay forever." Lyra stirred in her sleep, her lips moving just enough for him to catch a few words. Forever is too heavy. But maybe long enough to remember. He didn't know if she was dreaming or speaking to him, but her words stayed in his mind long after she drifted back into silence. Days later, Ethan noticed her light was dimming. She seemed tired more often, sometimes spacing out as if listening to something far away. "Lyra," he said one evening, "are you okay?" She smiled weakly. "I can still hear them, my world. They're calling, but I'm not ready to answer yet." Her voice trembled slightly, and Ethan's chest tightened. He wanted to ask her to stay, to tell her how much she'd changed his life, but he didn't. He couldn't. Because deep down, he knew she didn't belong here. Yet every time she smiled at him, a small part of him dared to hope that maybe, just maybe, she'd choose to stay anyway. And outside, as if the sky itself was listening, the Stars flickered faintly, like they too were holding their breath, waiting to see what Lyra would do next. The first sign that something was wrong came on a quiet morning. Ethan woke up to find the apartment colder than usual. The air felt heavy, almost buzzing with invisible energy. When he stepped into the living room, Lyra was standing by the window, her hand pressed against the glass. Her reflection shimmered faintly like water disturbed by a stone. "Lyra?" he asked softly. She didn't turn around. "They've found me." Her voice was calm, but her fingers trembled. Ethan frowned. "Who found you?" "The keepers," she said, finally turning toward him. Her violet eyes looked brighter, too bright. "They guard the corridors between worlds. They don't like when someone crosses without permission." Ethan stepped closer. "And now they're trying to take you back?" She nodded slowly. "They will pull me home, and when they do, this world will forget me. You will forget me." The words hit him like a punch. "Forget you? No, that's not possible." Lyra looked down, her voice shaking. "It is their way. They keep balance. A human cannot carry memory of a being like me. It breaks the threads that hold the worlds apart." Ethan felt his throat tighten. "Then I'll fight it. I'll find a way to keep you here." She gave him a small, sad smile. "Humans always say that when they care. It's what makes your kind beautiful." He reached out and held her hands. They felt colder than usual, her glow flickering weakly like a dying candle. "Lyra, you can't just disappear. You don't belong to them anymore. You're here now. With me." Her eyes softened. "You make it sound simple. I wish it were." The rest of the day passed in silence. Lyra moved through the apartment quietly, touching the things she'd learned to love. The coffee mug she always used, the small plant she'd grown on the windowsill, the old radio she liked to listen to even though she never understood the songs. That night, as Ethan tried to sleep, he heard her humming again. It was the same song she used to sing when she missed her home. Only this time, it sounded sadder, like a farewell hidden inside a melody. He got up and found her sitting on the floor near the balcony, knees drawn to her chest, eyes lost in the stars. "Ethan," she said softly, "do humans ever feel the sky pulling them away?" He sat beside her, confused. "Pulling them away?" "Yes. Like the world wants them somewhere else. Somewhere they can't reach." Ethan shook his head slowly. "No, but we do feel lost sometimes, like we don't belong anywhere." She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "Then maybe I'm becoming human. Because that's how I feel now." The words broke something inside him. He couldn't stand. To see her cry, not after everything she had given him, the laughter, the warmth, the quiet hope that life could still surprise him. He gently took her hand and said, "You belong here, Lyra. Maybe not to this world, but to me." She looked at him, eyes wide and trembling. "Ethan, if I stay, the threads will snap. My light will burn this world." He didn't care. "Then let it burn," he whispered. "You're worth it." Lyra smiled weakly. "You don't understand. If I stay, it won't only hurt me. It will hurt you too." Ethan tightened his grip on her hand. "Then we'll face it together." For a long time they just sat there, hands entwined, watching the stars flicker faintly through the window. The night was quiet except for her soft humming, a fragile sound that seemed to hold the whole world still. But then, as dawn approached, a faint vibration filled the air. The light bulbs flickered. The small plant by the window wilted in seconds. Lyra gasped, clutching her chest as if the air itself was pressing against her heart. "Lyra!" Ethan shouted, holding her shoulders. "What's happening?" "They're opening the gate," she whispered through tears. "They're pulling me back." Her glow flared, bright and blinding. The air shimmered with waves of light that cracked through the room like lightning. Ethan tried to hold her tighter, but his hands passed through her as her body began to fade. "No!" he cried, voice breaking. "You can't go. Please, don't go." She looked at him, eyes filled with sorrow and love. "Ethan, remember me if you can. Remember that once, a girl from the stars found peace in your world." Her hand touched his cheek, warm, trembling, and then turned into light. And just like that, she was gone. The room went silent. The air grew still. Only the faint scent of rain and silver light remained. Ethan fell to his knees, whispering her name again and again, hoping she'd answer. But only silence replied. Outside, the first rays of morning broke through the clouds, cold and colorless. And for the first time since she arrived, Ethan realized how truly empty his world was without her. The morning after Lyra vanished, the world felt different. Not louder, not brighter, just emptier. Ethan woke up on the couch, the same couch where she used to sleep. The blanket she loved was still there, folded neatly. For a second, he almost expected to see her silver hair peeking out from under it, her soft eyes glowing faintly in the morning light. But there was nothing. Just silence. He sat there staring at the empty space beside him. His mind tried to tell him it was a dream, that the strange girl with violet eyes had never existed. But his heart refused to believe it. He could still smell the faint sweetness in the air, the same soft scent that always followed her when she laughed. Ethan stood and walked slowly through the apartment. Every corner whispered her presence. The mug she used was still by the sink. The small plant she had grown on the windowsill was drooping, its leaves pale and weak. He reached out and touched it gently, whispering, "You miss her too, huh?" The plant didn't answer, but in the quiet, it felt like the world was grieving with him. He went to the bathroom next, the place where it all began. The tiles were cold under his feet, and the mirror was fogged slightly from the morning shower. Ethan stared at his reflection, half expecting to see a flash of silver behind him. But there was nothing, just him and the faint hum of pipes. He leaned against the wall and whispered, "Lyra, why did you have to go?" His voice cracked. For a long moment he just stood there, eyes closed, remembering her laughter, her strange questions, her soft songs. Everything about her had been otherworldly, yet she had felt more real than anyone he'd ever known. Days passed like that. He went to work, came home, ate alone. His friends noticed the change in him, how quiet he'd become, how distant, but he couldn't explain why. How could he tell them that the reason for his emptiness was a girl who might have never been part of this world? Sometimes at night he thought he heard her voice, a soft hum echoing from the corners of the apartment. He would get up, heart pounding, and search every room, but there was never anyone there. Only silence and the faint echo of memories that refused to fade. One evening he sat on the balcony where they used to talk about stars. The city lights below flickered faintly, and the wind carried the scent of rain. He looked up, hoping to see her world among the constellations. He whispered to the sky, "Do you still remember me, Lyra?" No one answered. But for a moment a single star shimmered brighter than the rest, soft and silver like her glow. It could have been a coincidence, yet Ethan smiled through his tears. He wanted to believe it was her. The nights grew longer after that. Sleep wouldn't come easily. He started writing down everything he remembered about her, every word, every smile, every strange thing she had said. He filled pages and pages, afraid that if he didn't, her memory would vanish like morning mist. He wrote about how she found beauty in ordinary things, how she said rain was the earth's way of singing, how she believed sadness wasn't weakness but proof that hearts were alive. By the end of the week, his notebook was full. And though it hurt, it also gave him peace. Through his words, she still lived. But one night, something strange happened. Ethan woke to a faint light flickering in the living room. His heart raced. He followed it quietly, afraid to hope, afraid to breathe. The light shimmered near the window, soft, silver, moving like a heartbeat. He whispered, "Lyra?" For a brief second, the glow shaped itself like her outline, a girl standing by the glass looking out at the night sky. Then just as suddenly it faded, leaving behind a single glowing strand of silver hair resting on the windowsill. Ethan picked it up carefully. It was warm, pulsing softly in his hand. His eyes filled with tears as he whispered, "You're still here, aren't you?" He held it close to his chest, feeling the warmth spread through him. Maybe it was just his imagination. Maybe not. But that moment told him something important. She wasn't gone completely. Not from this world. Not from him. Ethan realized then that love didn't always mean holding on. Sometimes it meant remembering. Sometimes it meant believing that somewhere, somehow, a part of that person still existed in the stars, in the wind, in the smallest moments of silence. That night, for the first time in many weeks, Ethan smiled before sleeping. The ache in his heart didn't vanish, but it softened because even though Lyra was gone, the world still felt a little brighter because she had once been here. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Days turned into weeks, yet Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that Lyra was still there. Not in the way she used to be, laughing softly, walking barefoot on his balcony, but in the quiet, unseen moments between breaths and thoughts. Every evening when the sun dipped below the city, a soft silver glow would shimmer faintly in the corners of his apartment. It wasn't bright enough to be a light bulb or reflection. It moved slowly, gracefully, as if alive. At first he thought it was just his tired mind playing tricks. But one night when he whispered her name, the light flickered. It danced once like an answer. That night Ethan couldn't sleep. He sat near the window watching the stars, clutching the small silver strand she had left behind. It was faintly warm, just as before, and whenever he held it close, his heartbeat slowed. It felt like her hand in his again, soft and steady. "Are you really there?" he whispered. The wind answered with a gentle hum, and for a moment he swore he could hear her voice in it, soft, distant, and full of warmth. It said just one word: "Listen." The sound was barely there, almost too fragile to be real, but it filled him with hope and fear all at once. After that night, the world around Ethan started to change in small ways. When he woke up, the plant Lyra had cared for seemed greener again. The mug she loved, which had cracked days ago, was whole, smooth, perfect, like new. Even the air smelled different sometimes, carrying that same faint sweetness that had once followed her everywhere. It was as if her presence was slowly seeping back into his world, drop by drop. One evening, while walking home through a light drizzle, Ethan looked up at the sky and smiled. The rain didn't feel cold anymore. It felt alive, like soft fingers brushing his skin. Lyra had once told him, "Rain is the earth remembering." Maybe she was right. Maybe this was her way of remembering him. He stopped in the middle of the street and laughed quietly to himself. People stared, but he didn't care. For the first time in months, he felt alive. Later that night, as he sat writing in his notebook, something strange happened again. The pages began to shimmer, faintly glowing with soft light. Words started appearing, beautiful, elegant letters written in silver ink. He froze. The handwriting wasn't his. The letters formed slowly, carefully, as if someone invisible was tracing each word with love. "Ethan, I found my way back home. But I can still see you. I can still feel you. The worlds are not so far apart when hearts remember." Ethan's hands trembled. He blinked rapidly, tears welling in his eyes. He whispered, "Lyra, is that really you?" The letters shimmered again. "You helped me understand what it means to belong. You showed me kindness when I was lost. Because of you, I am not afraid anymore." His throat tightened. Every word cut deep, soft, and painful at the same time. He wanted to reach through the page, to pull her back, to tell her she didn't need to stay away. He wrote under her words, his hand shaking. "I miss you, every single day." The silver light pulsed gently, then new words appeared beneath his. "I miss you too. But we don't lose people we love, Ethan. We carry them in every breath." He pressed his hand over the glowing page, feeling the warmth seep into his skin. It spread through his chest, wrapping around his heart like sunlight after rain. For a long moment there was silence. Then the glow slowly faded, leaving only his tear-stained handwriting. But something inside him had changed. He knew she was safe. He knew she was at peace. And somehow that made it easier to breathe. The days after that were quiet but not empty anymore. Ethan found comfort in small things again. The smell of coffee, the hum of the city, the soft rhythm of rain. Sometimes he'd catch a glimpse of silver light or hear faint laughter in the distance. He stopped questioning it. Some connections didn't need to make sense, they only needed to be felt. One evening, as he closed his notebook, he looked out at the horizon. The sunset glowed with a strange, beautiful hue, gold fading into silver. He whispered, "Thank you, Lyra." And for a fleeting second, he saw her reflection in the window, smiling, her eyes full of warmth and light. She didn't speak, but her smile said everything. Then she was gone again, leaving behind only the silver shimmer of dusk. Ethan sat there, heart full and eyes soft with tears. He finally understood what she had meant. Love wasn't about holding on. It was about letting the world change you because of someone's kindness, someone's light. And in that moment, Ethan realized that Lyra hadn't really left. She had simply become part of everything he loved. Weeks passed and life slowly began to move forward again. Ethan's days were still quiet, but the silence no longer hurt the way it once did. It was softer now, almost peaceful, like a melody that didn't need words anymore. He had started doing small things that reminded him of Lyra. He watered the plant every morning and talked to it just like she used to. He stopped rushing through his days and began noticing little details: the warmth of sunlight on his face, the sound of rain tapping against the window, the laughter of strangers passing by. These were all things Lyra had loved. He realized that she had changed him in ways no one else ever could. She had taught him how to see the world, not just live in it. One evening, Ethan sat at his desk reading through the old notebook. The pages were filled with their story, his memories, her messages, and the silver glow that once danced across the paper. Some words had faded, but their meaning remained bright inside his heart. As he read, he smiled softly. "Guess you really did stay," he whispered. Outside, the city lights shimmered like distant stars, and for a brief moment, one of them seemed to blink brighter than the rest. Silver, soft, alive. Ethan leaned back and sighed. Life had become gentle again. He went to work, cooked dinner, took walks under the night sky. Sometimes he even found himself humming one of Lyra's strange, wordless songs. It made people stare, but he didn't mind. The song was part of her, and now part of him. But one night, something unexpected happened. He was standing on the balcony watching the rain fall. The night air was cool, and the city glowed faintly through the mist. Suddenly, the silver strand of Lyra's hair that he always kept on the table began to shimmer again. Its light grew brighter, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. Ethan froze. His heart pounded. "Lyra," he whispered. The light lifted slowly into the air, swirling gently in front of him. It wasn't just light. It was her voice, her warmth, her essence. He could feel it, the same comforting energy he once felt when she smiled at him. A faint whisper echoed in the air. "You kept your promise." Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "You never left, did you?" The light shimmered again, forming faint, glowing ripples in the air. "No one truly leaves when they are remembered." He smiled sadly. "I still miss you. And I still see you." The glow surrounded him, soft and warm. It wasn't frightening. It felt like a hug, a real, gentle embrace. Ethan closed his eyes, and for a moment it felt as if she was there again, standing right beside him, whispering softly like she used to. "Ethan, you gave me a home when I was lost. Because of you, I found my way back. But more than that, you taught me what love means. It isn't about where you are. It's about who you carry with you." He nodded slowly, tears slipping down his cheeks. "You changed me, Lyra. You made me better. Then my journey was worth it." The light began to fade, scattering into tiny specks that floated upward into the dark sky. Ethan watched silently as they drifted higher, blending into the stars. For a second, it looked as though the stars themselves were bowing to her. He whispered softly, "Goodbye." And for the first time, the word didn't break him. It healed him. As the last of the silver glow vanished into the heavens, Ethan looked around his quiet apartment. It no longer felt empty. Every corner seemed alive with soft warmth. The plant, the books, even the sound of the rain. He understood now. Lyra was never truly gone. She had become part of the world she once wanted to understand. Her spirit was in the wind that touched his face, in the stars that lit the sky, in every heartbeat that reminded him to keep living. From that night on, Ethan changed. He started writing again, but not about loss. He wrote about hope, about wonder, about strange girls who fall from the stars and teach lonely men to love life again. His stories spread online, touching thousands of hearts. People said they could feel something while reading, something soft, glowing, and full of warmth. Ethan never told them where the inspiration came from. He only smiled and said, "From someone who helped me remember what light feels like." Years later, when his first book was finally published, he stood by his window, looking up at the night sky. The same star that had once glowed silver was still shining brighter than all the others. Ethan whispered, "We did it, Lyra." And, in the silence that followed, the wind answered softly, carrying a familiar voice that said just one word: always. Ethan smiled, closed his eyes, and let the warmth of that word fill his heart completely. Because love, he realized, doesn't fade when someone leaves. It lives on, in memory, in kindness, in the quiet moments when you feel their light. And in that small apartment under the soft glow of the stars, Ethan finally found peace. Not because she came back, but because she never truly left.